You asked for it. Here's the workshop I did over at Mythicon. Workshop a chapter with me, I believe is how I worded it. We're looking specifically at a masterclass introduction deep dive on a plot pattern you could use with tarot or oracle decks. Description box below. Go ahead and grab the slides. Go ahead and grab the notes. Go ahead and grab a deck and get cozy. You might want a snack and some tea or something for this one. See you here in a moment. Now it's going to work. So I was just telling everyone as well, for those of you who joined us, there's a digital copy of today's notes, and the digital copy has the link to today's slides at the bottom of, if you want to go ahead and grab right quick. The next slide, I know we can get there eventually while I'm talking. Come on and have a seat, my dears. Come on and have a seat. Don't be shy. You're welcome to feel, if you feel you need to move chairs around to become a desk, things of that nature, I'm okay with that.
Can you become a desk? Sure.
Can you become a desk? Hey, I taught high school English. I've seen kids do that. It works. Exactly.
There it is.
Exactly. Pep rallies.
My knees are not good.
Yep. I've seen kids do that at pep rallies, football games, basketball games. I got to do this homework if I want to play tonight. Yep. So speaking of, just to go to the next slide while you all catch up and settle in. Some of you know me, some of you probably don't. My name's Jenna O'Malley. I'm your soul writer, author of sci-fi fantasy with dashes of romance, nerdy references, talented humans, and magical immortals. I've been writing since I was... What year did Gundam Wing come out in the US? Late 90s, early 2000s? And really, truly, for me, writing was therapy. Writing was an escape from a world that was not fit for nerds at the time. And I fell in love with it so much that my parents said, if you're going to love books, reading and writing them so much, find something that's going to pay you to do that stuff. So I taught high school English in West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and several other states and several other countries for over 15 years, largely developing programs not only for advanced placement English courses that are typical of high school study, but also creative writing courses. That was like what people would hire me to do. We want to open a creative writing program at our magnet high school. Can you write the curriculum? Sure can. And I would do so to publishing standards. So much so that we all know what happened in March 2020. I suddenly had a very easy fourth marking period. I didn't have a 3-hour round trip commute from Cumberland, Maryland to Berkeley County, West Virginia anymore. I suddenly could use that time to focus on my writing, and I had a former student, thank you Brandon, if I ever get an award for anything with my books being turned into movies, he's going to be the first person I thank because he's a former student of mine. He called me out hard. I'm literally paying my phone bill from the stuff I wrote in your class because I self-published it. Why aren't you publishing your own stuff? Practice what you preached us. So I had to put my own foot in my mouth and do the thing. I did the thing. I now own, operate, and oversee Soul Bard Productions, LLC, which is the parent company to many things. My pen name, one, for the Myrna Annals. It does serve to cover my books in all facets. By the way, I'm vending over outside of Mythic Market. If you want to talk shop or talk books, come on over. And of course, there's me, Jenna O'Malley, the persona, because I do the YouTubes. If you check the link tree at the bottom there, you'll find my channel, Jenna the Soul Writer, which is about to cross 2,000 subscribers here very soon. I'm very excited. And I do a lot through that channel. I do workshops. Most of my vlogs are workshop-like. And my live streams that I do on behalf of Heart Breathings, which is owned and operated by a fellow author and mentor, Sarah Cannon, I help host writing sprints twice a week, sometimes more. And they're literally just, I like to consider them, this is your cafeteria table, you're doing your science homework, you're doing your math homework. Somebody needs a little therapy today, and that's okay. We kind of take care of our own, and you're allowed to go to and from different YouTube channels. I consider them different cafeteria tables. Whoever you want to sit with today, it's fine. We don't normally do clicks, normally. So if you like that intersection here with the Fae, authortube can be very open and welcoming in that regard. And then of course there's Soul Bard Academy, which is my official membership that you can join. They get a little bit more than the free things on the YouTube end. They get some coaching, and that also covers my editing. So I do a lot. I love what I do, and like my parents said, if you're going to love what you do, find a way to make it pay you in the long run. So I like to instill that into everybody today. If you love writing, find a way to do it, because if you like it, somebody else will also love it, for sure, for sure. So, cover reveal time. This is a special Mythicon give back to the Fae community. I've been very grateful to be embraced by the Fae community over the last year as a vendor, a vlogger, a volunteer, and more. And I'm very grateful because it happened at a time in my career where I was considering giving up, believe it or not. And so my give back to the community at large is a thank you, letting you see the cover reveal that goes with the workshop we're doing today. So that would be Fated Design. You're going to see a chapter or a workshop of a chapter, rather, from this nonfiction book. It'll be the first nonfiction text I put out under this pen name. I have some educational stuff under my government name that is older that I don't want connected because old research is outdated research sometimes. So this largely came out of an inspiration of when I got writer's block, what do you do when? We all know what writer's block is, and it sucks. I see nods in the audience. Some of you are like, girl, you in my head a little too loudly right now. I'd like to take a moment to also give some major credit here to one penumbra mine, Mama Maggie Ward. Past work we've done on this channel also has largely gone into some of the foundational brainstorming of specifically this chapter as well. So check out the past work I've done with Mama Maggie here. Members, you probably have access to the tarot writing prompt themes we used to do about a year ago. And also check out our channel in the description box. All my hugs. Thanks for all you do, Mama Maggie, to keep us going, keep us writing, and let's get back to the show. So, therefore, what is even fated design? Do we really have a control over fate? Depending on the culture you are.
Depends on who you ask.
Exactly, and depending on what you have experienced under fate. We are kind of multitasked as the writers of our characters. I don't consider myself the one in the driver's seat. I am the one doing the traffic report. If you want to come on in and join us, you're welcome to do so. I like to consider myself giving the traffic report, and sometimes I need help checking in with my fellow weathermen, if you know what I mean. So this is where Fated Design came in. It's using typical tools that we do and don't recognize as writing tools to break through blockages that are sometimes not even actually our characters not talking, it's us not listening. We, in some way, are the divine go-between between our readers and our characters in that regard, and it's a bridge that we build. The keyword everyone likes is characters should be relatable. Well, let's make them have human problems. And that's when I started really looking into how can we statistically control seemingly random things? Because is anything really truly random? Mathematics will argue with you on that all day. So Fated Design is meant to give you a randomized chance of seeing patterns that you might not be listening to from your characters then. By giving you different interpretations of spinning a single coin, it does not have two sides then. It has multiple sides. And it will land between two, one up, one down. So this brings that coin toss, coin spin back into play with your options a little bit by looking at tools that are within your reach. Some of us use tarot and other decks to help us decide what to do in our own real lives. Why can't we do that with our characters? They are images, are they not? Sometimes you can pick a painting and get an idea just from that. That's a writing exercise I would usually do with my high school students. I like to pick Thomas Kincaid paintings because, oh my God, the man packs a lot into a canvas. And I would say, okay, what happened before, during, and after this scene? Go. I would get 20 different answers in a room of 20 different kids. You can do the same here with a tarot deck. Now, it just widens the chance of you noticing the randomized events that are offered to your characters. Some character things are still in play. We gotta admit there's something the divine gave us that our characters like to relatably have. Motivation! And sometimes no motivation is a motivation. This is one of those moments where you could use the card to call out your characters for taking no as the only answer. I also say consult your best friend. Sometimes the tarot deck could be the voice of their best friend. So what do they do in action and reaction when you pull a card for a specific scene? Say they're about to go into a battle, but you don't know really truly what the battle's about. Okay, let's shuffle some cards, get into that meditative headspace a little bit. Hey dude, what's going on in this moment? Telephoning my character friend. Maybe a card comes out and it gives you a glimpse deeper into what's in their head or the actual battlefield in front of them. It could inspire a physical or a mental or a metaphysical, depending on if you have certain characters messing around with certain characters with and without magic in certain ways. You could also consider the book's themes, the book's universal truths that most cultures will agree upon. Let's get real. Most cultures agree good usually should triumph over evil. Usually. Let's get real. Most cultures agree love is a pretty good thing, especially when it's the friendship kind of love or the familial kind of love. You always have these canonical stories that overlap throughout history and culture for a reason. That's going to play into how people interpret your books on the reader end. I like to call this anticipating the reader reaction sometimes too, because you could ask yourself, whoa, if the character does A, are they going to throw the book at me in a good way? As in, I'm mad at this book, but I want to read one more chapter and it's 2 a.m., or I want to throw this book out the window and do not finish. No one wants to go in the DNF pile. So this can kind of give you a gauging also of pacing things. It can let you see extremes around those themes and social structures. We don't all live in a vacuum. We like to think we do, thank you internet, but we don't. And therefore we need to check that our expectations and biases aren't bleeding through so much into the character, because we have seen time and again where an author can write from a perspective that they do not hold and they later get in trouble for not being sensitive to it later. This can help you check in with those kind of cultural sensitivities, especially if you plan on publishing in an international way. So, therefore, how does this impact the plot? Well, if you remember old Freytag, you know that triangle thing in English class where it's like the beginning, the rising action to the climax, the falling action, the end. You can literally use this to gauge where that top pinnacle on the roller coaster of your plot would be for the climax. How much rising action do we have? How little do we have? And move that kind of like a slider bar. Because if, say, for example, you get the death card before you say, get the 3 of Cups, oh, they're going to go through a rebirth much sooner than the climax. They might need it at that climactic moment is why. Therefore, you could literally take a 10-card Celtic Cross or other traditional spreads in tarot and oracle deck reading and say, okay, here's my Act 1, my Act 2, my Act 3. Divide those 10 or so cards however you wish, because you might draw some clarifying cards that could bump you to 12 or 15. Now, I have a 15 spot outlet that I like to go through today with all of you to kind of get some practice in to see the pacing of how a card could land for you. This does mirror, if you know Jessica Brody's Save the Cat method. I did not intend it this way because I was playing with the numbers 1 and 3 again and again and again. I'm very glad to be doing this all with you a weekend of Friday the 13th, ironically, now that I think about it. And they I didn't mean for them to line up, they just did, and I said, oh, well, you are what you consume in this case, and maybe I consumed her knowledge and revamped it, so I'd like to give her some credit. I'd also like to give Corrine Kenner, she wrote Writing with Tarot, kind of like every other writer with tarot's go-to. I like the way she breaks down different meanings of the cards, is why I suggest her book over others. Not so much maybe her outlines of doing things. So the method we're going to go over today will have a pattern. We'll get into that pattern and the reasons why more here shortly. So let's look at some examples right quick, because let's get real. Tarot decks don't mean the same thing depending on who the artist is or was. The original Rider-Waite-Smith is going to have a different meaning on a tarot deck than a Marseille deck. They use different symbology for a reason. Now, there's also the reversed cards of what they could mean. We'll talk more about reversals and jumpers here in a minute. But you can take the face value of the card for what it is and look at the symbols. For example, this one, I didn't write this on the board. I gave you the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith of the World card, which is you're going to go on a voyage, you're going to go traveling, it's a change of place. But also, I like to acknowledge that in this one on the board, the crown is in the middle of the circle, so it's like your molten lava at the core of your earth. Your sovereignty is the molten lava at the core of your universe. Own your sovereignty at that center. You won't get that out of every world card, depending on the imagery. But they usually have crowns and circles in a lot of depictions to kind of go along that self-sovereignty depiction and description for their books. Now, other artists making these decks might bring another reason. We know Stranger Things has a deck. We know Disney has a villain deck. We know the Golden Girls have a deck. I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer has a deck. D&D has a deck. There's so many different fan decks. This is where I would ask myself, why is this character on this card? For example, I love Sailor Moon. I do. It's one of my favorite anime ever. There's 3 characters that they put on the High Priestess card. Either Sailor Mars, because in real life she's actually a High Priestess at a shrine, or Sailor Pluto, because she's kind of like the High Priestess of time, or they put Luna, Sailor Moon's cat, because logically a High Priestess is a good place to start if you want to be an advisor to royals, which was kind of a role in her life. So you can see where choosing different characters for that High Priestess card could give you a completely different meaning if you know their individual personas and backstories. Now you can ask, okay, if I'm drawing from, say, my Golden Girls deck, what does this tell me about my villain character I pull it for using? What do they have in common? Maybe they are a little bit like Sophia Petrillo when they're being really evil. The woman's curses were not deadly, but they hurt. They really hurt. They were the annoying kind of get paper cuts every day, or as she would say, may marinara never stick to your pasta, just annoyances. There's also that intuitive meaning. Hey, that's like one of the worst curses ever.
Listen, I work with some interesting people, so.
I worked with high school teenagers who dabbled in Wicca. I'm sure there's little curses like that following me everywhere. And I'm just like, okay, it's fine. So you might assume that because the crown is present among the clouds, that what was once bound to dreams and the crown itself, the ground we could replace that crown with, is reality. That was another intuitive meaning that somebody in one of my memberships gave me when they saw this slideshow in a previous workshop, in a previous iteration, I should say. And I really liked that compared to my sovereignty one, because it's true. What are you bringing down to earth among those clouds? And it's a very Piscean feel versus my Virgo interpretation of it. So therefore, what are jumpers? Jumpers are the cards that will jump out of your deck when you're shuffling. It is not a common practice to hate on anybody for how they read their cards, in my opinion. If you like jumpers and you like to read jumpers, take them. Put them wherever you want. I normally take cards that jump out as being like, hey, this is the real truth no one's looking at. That's just me. Other people are like, no, that's a distraction. Put it back in the deck and shuffle it back in. If it comes out a second time, I'll take it. Kind of like confirming your nat 20 in D&D. So you can choose to take your jumpers and what to do with them. They are your rules. Screw the rules. You're the ones making them. It's your universe. Build it however you want. So what, therefore, are the reversals? That's the card going upside down. Stranger Things puns intended, now that I think about it, because it can be that way. Some decks don't do reversals. Like some Oracle decks only have an upright meaning. That's up to you if you want to think, oh, it's the opposite of that upright. That's normally what the reversal sometimes mean, is an antonym or an antithesis of. So it's up to you if you want to use them. I only take reversals to look at my villain side as far as movements against my enemy, or my main character rather. That's a choice. Your rule, your world, you're welcome to do how you choose accordingly. So we are looking at the outline portion. May I have a time check actually? Yes, we're doing great time. I was supposed to be about 20 minutes in at this point. We're doing good. So, as you can see, you have 3 columns across the top. What card did you draw? Some people like to put a picture of this here. There are Rider-Waite-Smith and Marseille deck stickers you can get for journaling. If I use one of those decks, I will put the sticker there and save myself time because it's just easier for me. So then you're going to put the card meaning. You get to choose what meaning though. Is it the intended? Is it your meaning or something else? Where did you get it from and what is it? Therefore, what's the plot effect? Now remember, do you have a plot-driven story that acts upon the characters that they react to? Or is it a character-driven story where the character looks at the divine force and says, I want to do what I want? So you can pick that as your plot effect. Just don't assume that because it doesn't say plot/character that you only have to be plot driven, is my warning here, okay? So, first time around, you're going to draw one card. This is your, on the Freytag's pyramid, it's your beginning information that you would get at the opening of your story. What's going on prior to chapter 1? Let's set the mood. This is your who, what, when, where, why, how of this situation. Just to get a glimpse, this might be information for you. The readers might not ever know this information, or it could come later somewhere in this story, in this book, or 10 books from now. That's up to you. That's up to you. It's your world, build it accordingly. So, this is where they could start. I do caution you. You might want to move some cards around later. You are the divine hand of guiding them through and recording their story. You could be like Cupid and mess with it a little bit if you want. Then we get into your Act 1, and I did go with splitting the 3-act structure into Act 1, 2A, 2B, Act 3, so that way the climax falls right in the middle of your 2A, 2B. Common plot structure nowadays to allocate for rising and falling action. So Act 1 and 2A are going to be your rising action. Pick 3 slots, up to 3 slots. If you have a short rising action, you might only need 2 cards in each column. That's okay. 1 card could cover a couple scenes or a couple chapters, depending on the shenanigans that ensue from what happens when it's drawn. That is acceptable. You can start making those guesstimates of this is chapter 1 to 2, chapter 3 to 4 in your plot effect column if you so wish as you draw your cards. This is also where under your card meaning, I would note this came up as a reversal here, but by the end they should have resolved this and flipped it up right. That's how you could create a round character out of a flat 2-dimensional character. Just another little backdoor technique to seeing the perspective another way to get them to that bridge. And then of course with the Act 2A, this is going to be where your midpoint sits prior to the climax. This should be that last breath of air they get. If you were to equate this to a roller coaster, this is that last breath of air before the biggest plunge, the scariest corkscrew, the going upside down a couple times loop-de-loop. Do you give them a pause or do you not? We all know how the dance of life can be. Sometimes it does not let us breathe, and does your plot need that tension too? So this is a nice tension checkpoint on that 2A time slot. And yes, this is why you might draw 2 cards in Act 1 and 3 cards in 2A to clarify your midpoint. How tension is the tension. Again, if the death card shows up in this point, oh, we're not doing the rebirth at the climax. You need a level up before we get there. Got it. Is kind of the hint I like to take it. So the climax, you're going to draw 1 card. This is your middle. You notice how we have 1 card for the beginning? 1 card for the middle. And you can probably guess what pattern is coming. 3, 3, 1. So this is a divine sequencing of purposeful numbers with the 1, 3, 3, 1, 3, 3, 1. To get the fact that 3s force you to make decisions that sometimes lead to or don't lead to 1 becoming a new journey. Because if you repeat a cycle at the climax, that normally means there's a sequel. Heads up, or series of, is what I like to warn some of my clients. This could be an early interpretation of, is this a 1-book standalone, or did I drop into a grotto that is now an ocean worth of books? Your climax, I would caution you, if a reversal shows up, make it the hardest climax you've ever given a character to date and really push yourself as a writer, because that could be a hint for you that this might be the hardest book you've ever written, and therefore everyone after like it will get easier. You see the pattern does deed continue? We are into our falling action. We are checking in more with the secondary and tertiary characters, not the main characters at this point. Because your main characters still might want to lie to you. Because they're probably still lying to themselves. Really, truly. This is, again, where I will say, ask from the perspective of the best friend in the room or the worst enemy, because they're both going to give you probably the same accurate answer. One's going to hurt more, one's going to hurt less. Do you want Rafiki or do you want Scar? Take your pick. What does the book need right now, and is there a sequel? Act 3 is allowed to feel like a nice, neat, clean bow. We humans like presents. We like surprises sometimes, but we prefer presents. This is where I say you establish whether or not you write cliffhangers as a career choice. Because some authors, like my mentor Sarah Cannon, does. She has what they call Sarah hangers. Only she writes them this way and that good so far. And she's trying to teach others, but her way is her way and it works. And a lot of it has to deal with what she does in her Act 2 and her Act 3 to set that up for future books. This is how someone who you thought was going to show up in one scene ends up being the person who takes over your best-selling trilogy sometimes too. Thanks, Frey. You did that to me twice, dude. And of course, the ending. This could also be your prior to chapter 1 for your next book, if you are writing a series. Now, it could be like, this is prior, but let's get an update. Check your time jumps. If you're changing POVs, welcome on in, Elsa. You look fabulous, darling.
Thank you.
If you're changing POVs as well, this is another good chance to say, this is one character's way of seeing it. Their best friend might be mad at their way of seeing it. This is how you can go from an enemy to a friend or a friend to an enemy without romance involved in this situation as well. So, these are the two further sources that mainly inspired me to come up with this. I'd like to leave these up on screen if you want to take a quick picture of them or write down their title names.
Yes, they're in the slide deck.
They are in the slide deck too. Yep. For those of you who just slide in. Sorry, my dear. Sorry, my dear.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. For those of you just joined in, there's a QR code at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I can go back to it and you can snappy snap
Please.
and get the link to the everything.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
And this is going up on YouTube, so the link will probably be in the description box for them too. So, tarot for writers, if you are new to tarot, or the Rider-Waite-Smith interpretation of tarot, and you really like to write sci-fi, read her book, because a lot of her examples are not fantasy examples. They are sci-fi examples, and she has some really good horror and mystery examples with some of her cards that I have seen fantasy authors take, me included, and use for their plots to kind of bleed two worlds, two likenesses a little bit. Now, questions, anybody? Questions? Yes.
So, I love tarot just because it's just so symbolic and fun.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really struggle with is I love world building. I love characters. I love coming up with plots and ideas, but my brain explodes. Like literally a story I started that was supposed to be just a fun fanfic about pirates after my friend did like a fan art literally exploded into an entire series that I'm working on that uses not classic tarot cards but like the tarot of that world as like its basis, but I did want to use tarot cards as like an inspiration for the character developments and everything. So I guess my question is, when it comes to like plotting, I know a lot of stories like to use tarot as either an inspiration or as like a part of the structure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming with these that's not always the case. It's just for like, you can use them that way if you totally want to, but you also use them to just like plan out and have fun.
You can use it in one of two ways. The way I showed you today was to plot out a full story. Some people are not plotters. For those of you who may not be familiar, let me go make sure we're all on the same term with that page with that turn. Anyway, you have plotters. These are the people who need their outlines, and they live and die usually by their outlines, and they can't write a book unless they have their outline. On the other end of the spectrum in the continuum, hello other end of the spectrum over there, because I started here on the plotting end. Mm-hmm. There's the pantsters over there. They like to fly by the seat of their pants, is the phrasing. And whatever comes out of the fingers is allowed to come out of the fingers. Plotter is going to use this deck step by step, scene by scene, chapter by chapter, if they so feel. What I give you today is more what I like to call the plant stir. We're going to plant some seeds right here in the middle. I might have to outline a couple of points a little bit more, but I'm also okay following the GPS on this end of the spectrum.
I love that.
And allowing for the detours. Sometimes we allow for the detours because, voila, that's where our best ideas sometimes come from in life and in writing. So what I would do in this case, if I were a pure pantster, Hello, people on the replay that are watching on YouTube. I'm looking at some of you with a big hug right now because I've given you this advice. Pick up your deck and literally just pull one card for this moment. I'm stuck in this moment. I don't see how this point A still connects to point B because I'm in the middle of the mud. And it's sticky and it's dark and it's cold and I can't see a way out. Okay, tarot deck, one card. Oh, that's a path. That's a way out of this detour. That's a back road that Google Maps didn't pick up that I recognize. Is all you're giving your chance there to be as a plantster or even a pantster sometimes can feel that jive. Now plotters, we don't like monkey wrenches thrown into our plots. And that's why my character Frey and I don't get along. He likes to make me be a plantster because he will do stuff and disappear and literally not tell me where he's going for weeks and years at a time, to the point that there's a book about it because he wouldn't stop. Sometimes you will have characters who will force you to learn another skill to tell their story. That is the other reason why I like using tarot, because sometimes if you are a visual person, it gives you that cue. And I know that all the different types of learning are appropriate and it gives you that access into. For those of you who have aphantasia, look at the meaning of the books. For those of you who don't know what aphantasia is, that's people can't see a play of what they read. Most of us can. When I read a book, it plays in my head like a movie. Aphantasia people don't have that. They just hear it like an audiobook or they're reading it to themselves. Both are appropriate. Both are writers. And I find that people who have aphantasia love these books because it gives them words and descriptions they might not have even considered for, say, a forest before. Oh, that's a way to describe it. Let me see if I can play with this wording more and if it helps me. So it can also give you other exposures to those skills. Great question. Any other questions? Because we do have some time that if you wanted to actually get your decks out and write for a bit, we could allow such. Thank you for spending time with me either actually at Mythicon or here on the replay. We've got so much more coming up. I'm actually going to walk you all through this coming weekend, a full walkthrough of a future book I need to write. And guess what? I'm drawing from multiple decks. So the example I walked through in this workshop was assuming one deck. I have 4 or 5 decks we might be drawing from. And it's going to probably take us an hour or so, both Saturday and Sunday. So see you here in a bit. All my hugs. You've got this.